Okay, moving on to chapter 2. Now we're going to be talking about identifying place values, using positive and negative numbers in calculations, as well as calculating a percentage, and finally writing numbers in scientific notation. So what we're going to start off with are units of measurement. So we in science use the metric system. Now we live in the United States, so we use the empirical system, and so there is a difference between the two. We're going to look a lot at the metric system, and it actually makes so much more sense in my mind personally. And so I actually think in metric, and sometimes it's hard for me to switch back and forth. But you can see that the metric system is a standard system of measurements used in chemistry. So we can talk about time, we can talk about temperature, weight, distance, weight again, distance. So 8:30 a.m. is non military time. 22 degrees Celsius is the same thing as 72 degrees Fahrenheit. 12 kilograms is the equivalent of 26 pounds. 1.65 meters is 65 inches, etc. So our goal for this video is going to be able to learn and write the names and abbreviations for the metric or the SI units that are used in length, volume, mass, temperature, and time. My cat's going crazy. She'll probably make an appearance here in a minute. Okay, scientists, again, we use the metric system for a unit of measurement, and we've adopted a modification of the metric system, and this is called the International System of Units, and this is a worldwide standard. And so it's kind of cool because when you go through the world, like one of the standard things are scientific units of measurement. And so I used to present all over the world on hydrocephalus research, and if I was talking about measurement of ventricle mass or volume, it would be, grams per mass, volume would be liters or milliliters, etc. And so it really is a standard unit. Okay, and then the International System of Units, which is abbreviated as SI. This is an official system for measurements that are used throughout the world for units of length, volume, mass, temperature, and time. So looking at these, you can see that for measurement metric, we use meters, volume is liters, grams for mass, temperatures is degrees Celsius, and seconds are time. And the SIs are usually pretty similar. Again, we're going to be using meters for length. Volume instead of liter is cubic meters or meters cubed, right? The mass, instead of using gram, is using the kilogram. Temperature, instead of degrees Celsius, is using degrees Kelvin or Kelvin. And then again, time is both going to be seconds. And so there is some crossover and commonality between the two, but there is some differences as well. Okay. So to practice this, and then we're going to add this together with what we just talked about with sig figs or significant figures. Okay, we can look at our meter stick. Okay, and I'm actually in the process of making masks, right, for our COVID victims. So you can see I actually measure out, and use a lot of different measurements. So pull out a ruler right now, and you can actually practice along with us. Okay. So when we're looking at the length, 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. And like I said in the last video and with this one, metric just makes a ton of sense because it's all in multiples of 10. And so it's just as easy to move that decimal point back and forth and be like, oh yeah, okay, this, 1 meter or 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters, etc. Okay, so 1 meter is 1,000 or 100 centimeters. So that's a nice even number. Where if we look at the U.S. system, okay, 1 meter is 39.4 inches. So that's just so random to try to remember. Okay, and then you can see here again centimeters. Each centimeter has 10 millimeters in it, and it's just nice and segmented, and it makes sense. Where the inches, it makes sense because we grew up in the States and that's what we use, but it's not as easy to measure around and convert between the different units. And so again, 1 meter is 1.09 yards, or 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. So you can see that there are some differences. So looking at the volume of liters versus milliliters. Again, it's just super easy because it's, a factor of 10. 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. Where if we're looking at, metric versus the other, it's 1 liter is 1.06 quarts, or 946 milliliters is 1 quart. So you can see that it's not as polished. Okay, so you can see also here the difference, in what it would look like in a graduated cylinder. And what we do is we use these graduated cylinders to measure small volumes. Graduated just means that it has markings on them in a grade, and then cylinders just the shape. Okay. When we're moving on to mass, we're going to be using grams and kilograms. And again, 1 kilogram, kilo is 1,000, so that equals 1,000 grams. So again, it's a nice even roundup, where 1 kilograms is 2.2 pounds, or 554 grams equals 1 pound. So you can see, again, metric is just a lot smoother. And then when we weigh this nickel in a weigh boat on a scale, you can see that the mass of this nickel is 5.01 grams on this electronic scale. With temperature, comparing Celsius and Kelvin, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, where it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. That's supposed to say Celsius. Where the Kelvin scale for the temperature begins at the lowest possible point, and that would be 0 kelvins. Okay, so 0 kelvins is incredibly cold, and a thermometer is used to measure the temperature. So again, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the same as 0 degrees Celsius. Okay, and you can see here, this side is Celsius, where this side is Fahrenheit, and you can see 0 is roughly at 32, or it is at 32. Okay. The unit of time is going to be seconds, and that's the correct unit for metric and SI units. The standard measure for 1 second is the atomic clock, and we also can use a stopwatch to measure the time of a race. So I know that if I'm ever trying to, jog or do anything that I don't want to do, a second lasts forever, right? But we use a stopwatch on our phone so that we can measure time. So what I want you guys to do is take a second here and identify those SI units for each of the following: volume, mass, length, and temperature. All right, and so I want you guys to write those down. Let's see how you did. Okay. So the unit for volume for SI, remember we talked about the 2 different units, and this one's the SI one, okay? So this one is going to be cubic meters, or meters to the 3rd power, right? Cubed. So squared would be 2, cubed is 3. Mass is kilogram, length is meter, and temperature is Kelvin. Okay, so there's a little video for that.